I'm Rip Esselstyn, and you're listening to the Plant Strong podcast. What if your dinner plate could tell the story of your past and shape your future? How cool would that be? Author and plant-based advocate Dom Thompson returns to the Plant Strong podcast to discuss his new book, Eat What Elephants Eat, to explore his deeply personal journey of change. And I want you to know that this isn't just a recipe book, but it's also a manifesto of sorts on how to live a life that is truly connected to your values. I'm going to have this powerful story along with some of his delicious recipes right after these words from Plant Strong. Let me teach you a little health hack that can save you up to 30% on your next order of Plant Strong foods. Thanks to our partnership with TrueMed, every single item in our product line is now 100% eligible for HSA and FSA reimbursement. Because of the nutritional integrity of everything that we make, you can use your health savings or flexible spending account to stock your pantry with the Plant Strong essentials that you love pre-tax. Here's how it works. Just select TrueMed at checkout before you enter your payment information, and you'll then unlock those sweet FSA, HSA savings. It's real food, it's smart spending, and it's a total win for your health and your wallet. PlantStrong.com. If you're looking for the perfect excuse to invest in your health this fall, both personally and professionally, start planning now for the Plant Strong Black Mountain Retreat. It's November in the stunning Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Not only will you spend 5 powerful days immersed in Plant Strong living, movement, and connection, but if you're a healthcare provider, you'll also earn continuing education credits that are included with your registration. That means it's not just a retreat, it's a professional investment. This is your chance to recharge, reconnect, and return home inspired with the knowledge and support to lead by example. Spots are limited, and November will be here before you know it. Head to plantstrong.com/retreats and start planning your Plant Strong escape right now. Eat what elephants eat. Why elephants, you may ask? As you get to know Dom Thompson, you'll understand why the elephant is his spirit animal. It's big, it's powerful, and yet somewhat gentle and mysterious. It's also the largest land animal that eats plants. And no one will ever accuse an elephant of being weak. A little over 2 years ago, I had Dom on the podcast to share his very incredibly intense and personal journey. Growing up on Chicago's West Side, Dom became involved in the drug trade that led to his imprisonment in his early 20s. And it was in prison that he resolved to adopt a lifestyle that caused no harm to other beings. And his mantra, if it requires harm, then nah. His book, Eat What Elephants Eat, intertwines his personal story with practical guidance on how you can also adopt a plant-based lifestyle, featuring 80 simple vegan recipes and meal plans. We also discuss the deeper meaning of food as a powerful bridge to identity and community. Dom's strength is rooted in his empathy, and you'll hear all about that today. So please welcome back to the Plant Strong podcast, Dom Thompson. Dom, my Plant Strong brother, welcome back to the Plant Strong podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, brother.
Yes. Well, and we haven't connected for almost 2 years to the weekend, because it was 2 years ago that we invited you down to be part of Team Plant Strong for the 5K half marathon or the full marathon that was taking place here in Austin that weekend 2 years ago. And I can't remember, did you do the half marathon, the full marathon, or the 5K with me?
I did a 5K. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
But I'm down. You can put me on record. I'm down to do it again next year with you, even do a half or a full. I'm down to do it next year too as well. Because we had a good time. It was a great turnout. To
Yeah.
those of you who are listening, really great time to have like-minded folks for the amazing Plant Strong team and those that may not be a part of the team. I had a really great time meeting everyone that's a part of that Austin community. It was really fun.
Yeah. 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 It was great. Thank you. And this year, they just had it this last weekend.
Okay.
And I think it was 21 degrees the morning of.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
cold. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cold when you and I did it, but it wasn't 21. I think it was 35 when we did it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's going to be the norm going forward for unless they should push it a month ahead so people can have a more comfortable race now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. So tell me, where are you today? Where am I talking to you from?
Sure. Yeah, I know. It's like, where's Dom? Like I was just telling my people um, at my publishing team, I logged the last 3 weeks. Myself and my fur kid Rock, we've been on the road the last 3 weeks doing some press for the book. We logged over 50 hours in the car alone doing a drive because what a lot of people don't know about me, I don't believe in crates. I don't believe in kennels. I don't believe in doggy daycares in terms of leaving my fur kid. So if I can, he goes with me 80% of the time. He's a big 70-pound husky. So he drives with me anywhere if I have that opportunity to get to that destination. And I don't care if it's in Chicago, New York, Miami, uh, even this summer when we go shoot this movie, he will be going with me and we'll drive cross country to LA specifically. And the 20% of the time he's unable to go with me. If I have to get on a plane, I'll fly my nephew from Chicago to watch him, to house sit to watch him. So we just got back in town, him and I, and I'm back home. This is here home in Atlanta. So that's where I'm at today.
Wow. Okay, there you go. And
Yeah.
you just kind of lightly dropped that you're going to be working on a movie. Like, is that?
Yeah, no, I can share it. I was given the opportunity. I was approached to have my life story be a feature film. So it's a major multi-million-dollar movie project. We will be shooting sometime this summer. I'm an advisor on set. I'm not a part of the movie, being in the movie, but it's a feature film with a full cast, film crew, and all of that. I'm really excited about that project, and it's focusing on the incarceration component with flashbacks that led up to me being incarcerated, including the transformation of who I end up becoming today, which is who you all know as an advocate for human and animal rights, as a former vegan athlete, and as a social entrepreneur trying to make plant-based eating accessible and, more importantly, affordable. Yeah, so I'm very fortunate and very excited to bring this movie to you all, or be a part of the team that's bringing this movie to you all in the next year or two. Yeah.
Wow. Do you know what the name of the movie is going to be?
Of course. I can't give away too many details yet, but yeah, we have a name it's already fixated with it, that's associated with the project, but we also have a name that we're going to more than likely just stick with that name, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't give away too many details about it, but yeah, it's a movie based on my life story.
And do you know who plays Dom?
So we're actually actively right now going through that casting process. And I don't know if you know anything about movies or movie making. This was the first for me, so I learned a lot already for the project. But we are going right now through the casting process, and I can't give away too many details, but I'm excited to see, especially the specific supporting roles that will be put in place. But we do have some good ideas. Yeah.
Great. I mean, and listen, and I don't want to talk too much about the this film that you
No, I'm feel free. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just curious. So like, and we're gonna get into this incredible book that you just wrote called "Eat What Elephants Eat." Here it is, with, of course, you on the back wearing your digs.
Yeah.
But I would imagine it sounds like this movie project was brought to you before you had the book. Who had the insight to go, let's make a movie about Dom?
Yeah. So the movie, you're right. Usually what happens when a book is produced, then studio heads may take notice, like, oh my God, this is an amazing book. And my book, as you probably already got a chance to read through a little bit, it's a hybrid. It's not just any cookbook with these amazing whole plant-based recipes, but it also gives you my why and my background and my origin story in the beginning. So it's an autobiography that comes together with a cookbook, and then you have Eat What Elephants Eat, the book. And so with respect to the process on how this movie opportunity came into my ecosystem, I have been courted over the years to be a part of a lot of different projects, from documentaries that's vegan related to non-vegan related, including some of the bigger projects, some of the original, let's just call it original producers or money guys that felt like, well, why weren't you a part of this project, or why wasn't you on this documentary? And I explained why, conflicts of interests or conflicts of timing and more. But some of the same producers behind a lot of incredible projects that and documentaries that have been produced approached me about doing this movie project. And they had a chance to also, they already knew my story, and they felt like my story needs to be published and produced. So they also had the opportunity to get an advance copy, a script of the book proposal that was originally put together, which was the way my book proposal was written. It was like reading a movie.
Yeah.
And you get a part of that in Eat What Elephants Eat. But as you know yourself, the proposal is a whole different writing and narrative. And that writing is basically a very detailed forensics of who I am from my inside and outside. My entire DNA is on display for everyone to judge, from publishers and more. And they had an opportunity to read this. And the same reason why we had all big four publishers interested, in producing this book, is the same reason why they was interested in producing the movie, because that story, or my story, moved them in a way that the team wanted to produce the movie to show the world that never judge a book by its cover. You can have a second chance in life and do great, and you can go on to be a good human being with ethics and morals that is centered around the do no harm approach. What really caught them is my mantra: if it requires harm, then no, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And they approached me for it.
Yeah. So wonderful, so beautiful, and so, I think, well deserving. So
appreciate that.
Yay. So this is what I'd love to do, Dom, is in this book, Eat What Elephants Eat, you have 9 steps to the Eat What Elephants Eat mindset. And so what I'd love to do is, I think this would serve as a nice framework for us to talk about your story, and then how people can apply it to themselves. So let's start with number 1, which is, you say, accept your past. And so I'd love for you, let's talk about that past. And you say you grew up in the west side of, not Chicago, but Shiroi, right?
Oh, Chirac. Yeah, we call it Chirac.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Not yet. Chirac.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
an acronym. Yeah. So Chirac is like Chi-Town is an acronym of Chicago, specifically, which is the city I grew up on. I grew up on the West Side, and my past includes growing up in a very poor and violent neighborhood, or experiencing some of these experiences that has shaped me into who I end up becoming short term and who I also end up becoming long term with respect to my personal evolution. And to be completely vulnerable with that and to recognize that that's something that we and I wanted the reader to see. If I can be vulnerable and honest and identify my why and my past, so can you, the reader, and to really dig deep to find out your reasoning why. And because if you know your why, you could be successful and be sustainable in choosing this compassionate lifestyle specifically. So I think that's important for people to do a little deep diving with respect to that.
yeah. Yeah. And just so people get a little bit more color around your past, I to me, it's just tragic. And I don't know if this is still going on. It's just the way things are, but what you witnessed as far as almost all the men in your life, basically either being murdered or going to prison because they were part of the, what was the name of the gang? The Vice Lords?
Vice Lords, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Vice Lords. And I think I think that you were kind of not wanting to go that path, but you just saw the money and the power, and it was just, you couldn't stay away from it.
It wasn't really not wanting to, it was just like, there's a fork in the road, and you have a choice to go left, which is job, school, football, and then more than you had this choice like, okay, hustle, get some money to help family, help yourself, help the community. And you're good at both. And I kind of went forward, like, with the ideal in mind that this is only temporary. I never had it in my mind I was going to be doing this forever. Sure, the attraction of what comes along with being a person of influence in the streets and success, being good at it too. Like any other young man that comes from a marginalized community in that timeline. You got to think we're talking late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The impressions of a guy like myself is seeing, where you have these opportunities to make an abundance of money really quick, really fast, where you can also do more for yourself and your family and your community. Because there's only so much going left is going to do, and especially when you are brought up in that environment and that's all or that's all you're seeing, these role models, not just the men and male role models, but I've seen even women in my family uh, doing some hustling and doing that. You kind of become immune to it, and you feel like this is a way of life and it's okay. But in hindsight, no, it wasn't okay. But I learned from that. So I decided to go straight. So I was trying to hustle and do what I needed to do, while also um, playing football in high school, and then eventually going on. My injury stopped me from going to
Yeah.
play football in college, but I still went to college for architecture and design. And that's around the time I decided to leave this alone and retire at the dope game, and to continue to do full-time school while also working an entry-level position in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
And then that lifestyle from my past finally caught up with me, to do basically what some people would view as one last score. A childhood friend of mine asked me to do this deal, and it just so happened ultimately the deal was a bad deal where I was being set up by the feds.
Yeah. So it was basically a sting operation. What was interesting to me is that, if you rewind maybe a couple months or a year, I don't know the timeline exactly, you were kind of making this delivery, and I guess the cocaine that was in the car wasn't the grade or the level that it should have been, unbeknownst to you. And so you basically had to talk your way out of, well, you talked
a dangerous situation. Yeah. Very dangerous situation. I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah. And it sounds like that was at that point, you were like, okay, I'm done. And then to your point, that one last, as you refer to it in the book, you had that one last pothole that basically bit you pretty hard, where it was a sting operation, and it was basically Dom versus the United States, right?
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, it's truly one of the most scariest pieces of paper that anyone can see. It's not you versus your county. It's not you versus your city. It's not you even versus your state. It's you versus your government, your country, the people of the United States of America versus you, which tells you and anyone that's haven't had this experience dealing with their government, that's basically saying the government has enough evidence on you, the federal government, where you were indicted by a grand jury and you are their conviction rate is like 87%. You're gonna have some consequences one way or the other. And that's one of the most scariest feelings I have ever experienced in my life, when I seen that piece of paper. And it doesn't get any worse than that, for sure. It's very stressful. And then when they put you in these certain conditions, including me ended up being in the hole, is very inhumane, and some of the things I have seen and experienced while I was in there.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. I'd love to talk about that in a little more detail, but
sure.
So I'm just going to kind of go back to your 9 steps to, eat what elephants eat, the mindset. So number 1 is basically accept your past. Number 2, we're kind of talking about it, which is learn from your mistakes. And maybe, how long do you think it took you before you were able to learn from some of your so-called mistakes?
Instantly.
Yeah.
When I tell you, it took just that one piece of paper, and a couple of days in MCC Chicago, and that's when I had never before. It's funny. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual, but I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher energy and a higher calling. That brought me the closest I have been to God and more. And I didn't need to experience years behind bars to realize I don't need to be placed in this scenario ever again. I would never cut corners ever again. I would never do something to break the law ever again. It was one of the most uncomfortable feelings I have ever experienced. And this is what made me get on my knees and prayed in my cell for forgiveness and to get through this challenge that I was facing and going forward. So honestly, if I'm being real with you, it didn't take long at all. It was pretty much instantly. I knew this is somewhere I did not want to be and did not want to spend much time being in. But I did have to go do some calendars. But almost every day, I would pray to get home sooner than later through a technicality, through an appeal, through a pardon or whatever. I wanted to get home. I felt like I didn't need to sit in timeout that long to realize like this is just not the life for me.
Well, and you mentioned how for the first time in your life, the black lawyer that you had kind of, looked at you and talked to you in a certain way that you weren't used to. And I think he basically said, help me if I'm right here, but hey, you can either do 3 years, right? I think just by pleading guilty, or if you don't and you try and fight it, what was it? 30 potential for 15 or 30 years, something ridiculous.
10. Yeah. So he had a heart to heart with me.
Yeah.
He didn't know what they was going to give me, but he knew I was going to do time. The option was either you take full responsibility and we do what's called a blind plea, and hopefully the judge has mercy to give the most minimum sentence available based on sentencing guidelines as a first time nonviolence offender, right? So I had that going for me. Never been in trouble with the law before. Or we go to trial for entrapment, because it was an entrapment case. There was pressure. I wasn't looking for trouble. I wasn't like, yo, I want to make this deal happen. Like, they kept pursuing me for months to make this deal happen, even though I had hesitation. And if we would have went to trial and we would have lost, the way the U.S. government views it, bipartisan, no matter if the AG is Democrat or Republican, they don't care. They view you as wasting taxpayers' dollars when you could have just admitted to guilt and took full responsibility and served time or whatever the scenario might have ended up being. And I would have got a minimum of 10 years for sure if I would have took them to trial, because they viewed you as wasting taxpayers' money when you know you are guilty for something, or guilty for that those charges they was bringing up.
Yeah. So what were you sentenced with? How much time?
Yeah. So they basically gave me a 10-year sentence, which was basically 5 years of hard time and 5 years of house arrest. And I ended up doing some years, about 2 to 3 years on hard, and then I got the 2 years off from that, from what we call the RDAP, the drug program, and for good behavior and more, which is I was eligible for up to 36 months off my sentence because of my background in terms of being a non-violent offender, first time offender, and basically not causing trouble during my duration of my time. And then I came home where I had a mandate of 5 years of house arrest, where my requirement was to get housing, find housing, and get a job. And I was able to do both after serving about 6 months and halfway out. So I was basically homeless for 6 months, until I was able to come home. Until I was able to get a apartment and get a job, which was my healthcare job that excelled. And then being a role model citizen, I had curfew. I was only able to leave my home from 6 a.m. and I had to be back by 7 p.m. That was my curfew. I was only allowed to be out from away from my home within the vicinity radius, like a 30-mile radius of Chicago, to just go to work basically. But I had to be home by 7 p.m. Every day. And they would call me up to 5 times throughout the night from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. randomly, where my vocal cords would have to match. First, you need a landline. You cannot have a cell phone or a wireless cordless phone. It needs to be a landline. And they would call me from a random number. I wasn't allowed to have caller ID. And keep in mind, this is mid to late 2000s. And so the landline, they would repeat. There was a computer repeating sentences or words that I need to say back. And then my vocal cords, which they recorded at the probation office, had to match with those words. And if it didn't, I had one more attempt for it to match. Because their goal is to make sure I didn't leave my home or not doing any illegal activity outside of the curfew hours. And if I didn't match, then marshals would kick down that door and ship me back to prison. So it was very high tech. It was not a monitoring brace. They didn't believe in that for my case or for me. They needed my vocal cords, just like they needed my DNA. My DNA is on file. I was not allowed to leave unless I was to give up my DNA.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. That's intense. It's really,
Yeah. It was something. It was an experience for sure.
uh,
It was.
yeah. All right. So you get to prison, and within the first week, I think, to your number 3 of your 9 steps, you recognized, I mean, maybe it was just a matter of praying, but you recognized possibility over limitations when you were
Yes.
basically praying, and it came to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The light bulb moment you're talking about.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Trying to find my why, or understand, okay, what is the consequences? Like I get it, for every action there is a consequence, but I had a moment of epitome, and that light bulb moment when I was praying to get answers, and everything pointed to that childhood memory when me and my mother, when I was 8 years old. This messaging came in clear through me, because I have always been a finicky eater. I have always been very disgusted by chicken wings or pork chops, anything associated or attached to the anatomy of a bone. I would just look at it. I was one of those kids ahead of my time, just had a look at that, the way the food was structured, to know it came from something that was slaughtered. And I looked at my mom in that moment, and then told her that I didn't want to have anything to do with that, those chicken wings, because I was already a finicky eater, and more, and I would always pick around the cartilage. To me, digging in those wings felt like digging in my own forearms,
Mm.
where you're going through the little veins. You see the little blue veins of the chicken wing, and and I would like pull just a little bit at the flesh and just eat that. Versus typically when people eat chicken wings, they like clean bone and all. That was not my style. I just hated it. In that moment, me and my mom had a conflict. And I told her I didn't want these chicken wings because they felt like little bitty arms. And it's not like she can rush to Google to like, what do I feed this guy? But she, after processing it and gave it some thought, she realized that, yeah, he's viewing this piece of meat as a dead piece of flesh. And she ended up going to the local grocery store to buy me fish sticks.
Right,
so
right.
I end up so I end up eating a lot of fish sticks and chicken nuggets, as long as it didn't have any bone attached to it. But that moment, and that memory, and that messaging was very clear in that moment of prayer in my prison cell, where if you're an 8-year-old Dominick or an 80-year-old Dominick, if karma or the universe shows you something, it's truly important for you to see through it, to really go all the way through it, to see what is this messaging about. And I, in that moment, was on to something, but I chose to continue to go on my life to eat meat, of course, in a very aesthetic way, the way food engineers are very creative at doing, to mask what it actually is. Um, and I felt like the universe, based on the messaging I received from my prayer, was removing me from society to really evolve and become who I became today, which is my mantra I created in that moment. I did a hard spiritual reset, that if it requires harm, then nah or no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And it was in that moment of prayer that light bulb went off, where I denounced eating meat and made a deal with the universe or God that I would never eat meat again. And I never looked back, and that was about 24 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and the amazing thing is too, is it, so you decided to do this in prison, uh, just after being there a week or two,
Mhm.
and now you're basically trading your meat for other inmates' vegetables, right?
Absolutely. I would trade my meat protein for my cellmates for their carbs. So I ate a lot of simple and complex carbs, and they thought I was crazy and a weirdo for that. But they was happy to make that deal with me because they got more meat protein. They thought they was getting a better deal out of it. When in
Mm.
hindsight, I was getting a better deal because I went on to become very strong, very powerful, one of the strongest guys in the prison system, because we would have what's called liftoffs. And in a population of over 1,000 inmates, I was always in the top 10, benching heavy, over 400 pounds, 405, squatting over 500, deadlifting 500 like it's nothing. Guys deadlift and pull 315 or 405, but me, it was just like clockwork, and nothing. Yeah.
That's super impressive. Did you get any? Did any of the guys or gals go, I want to eat what he's eating?
Well, it wasn't a co-ed prison. It was only one gender. But yeah, I no, they didn't. It's funny. I think you get more men and women in today's society that, especially now, I feel like there's a lot of trolls online and a lot of more people that speak very, very recklessly and ignorant to something that they don't know, or fear, but speak more down on people that eat plant-based food. Because back in those days, and it could have been the fact that I'm in the feds, I'm not in the state. State is a different type of criminal. Federal, you're in there with kingpins to guys that do white collar crimes and more, just more of a mature criminal, more of a high level criminal. They didn't give a s about what I
Yeah.
ate. They thought it was weird and they thought it was crazy, but they wasn't like thinking I'm less than them at all. So no, they didn't really take to that. Like, I need to eat what he eats. They're just like, no, that's cool.
Right.
That he can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and did it surprise you at all that you were, eating basically just vegetables, rice, bread, whatever. And even though you lost weight, like I think
Yeah.
you came in at 250, you got down to
Over
190.
215. Yeah.
You were just crushing it in the weight room.
Yeah. Again, we didn't have the incredible books like Eat
Uh-huh.
What Elephants Eat, or the documentaries out there to show the data and the science, or the organizations like Plant Strong and more to like really help guide people through this amazing lifestyle that we all are part of. I have no idea what was going to happen to my body because I did it for ethical reasons. And but my God, me doing it, my body became its own experiment in itself. I didn't know if I was going to wither away either. Like, that's the concept where you're like, oh, you're going to eat vegan, you're going to wither away. Hell, I not that I thought I was going to wither away, but I didn't care because I didn't want to harm and eat animals anymore. Then if I wither away, I wither away. And it became the opposite. I was over 250 pounds, and that inflammation started receding, and I started losing weight. I became what genetically I was engineered with respect to natural selection supposed to look like, without the fat, without the inflammation. Now, still strong and more, but the counter production of lifting weights while also eating plant-based, it was a beautiful mix that just produced a really incredible body of work and that can lift heavy.
Yeah.
And can basically walk that walk, not just talk that talk.
I want to read, this is an excerpt from your book, and it's basically, you talk about your transformation within the first couple of days. You say, people often ask me what those days of transitioning from a diet of meat and terrible fats to plants felt like, and I tell them, honestly, it was the closest thing that I have ever felt to feeling like I was a real life superhero with a cape, superpowers, and incredible strength. I lifted weights 2 to 3 times a day to stay occupied, but also to burn off a surge of newfound energy. I became one of the strongest men among more than 1,000 inmates in my prison compound. Yeah, that's that's something else right there.
It's true too. I really did in that moment, and I wish I could get it back. I have never been a human that habit or a human that feel like, oh, I wish I could experience this again, experience that again. But that's probably one of the very few things that if I can experience what I experienced in that moment when I stopped eating meat, if I can sell that and put it in a
Yeah.
bottle and tell people, this is how you're going to feel when you go vegan. I promise you, you're going to feel not weak. You're going to feel strong, beautiful from head to toe, inside and out, spiritually, your aura, everything, so much clarity. You're just going to feel like you're invisible in a good way. and I felt like a superhero. It's just one of the most, I swear, one of the most beautiful feelings I have ever
Yeah.
experienced, for sure. Yeah.
Well, and I think specifically for you, you know, with your story and who you were as a kid, I almost feel like everything kind of came into alignment in a really beautiful way for you in that moment in time in the prison. And it was like this. It's kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
So you also talk about, you know, I love the way you talk about spirituality in the book. I love the way the way you, with so much vulnerability and honesty, talk about your journey. But you also talk about like animal-based foods versus plant-based foods. And you refer to it in a way that I've never heard before. You refer to the animal-based foods as dead energy and the plant-based foods as live energy, which, man, I love it. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, there's science to prove that, where you're talking about dead or empty enzymes or non energetic calories, to when you're eating live enzymes and nutrients and more from leafy greens and plants in itself. There's like Kendrick Lamar song is, "They Not Like Us." Yeah, that plant protein is different than meat protein. You don't have the itis, you don't have the inflammation. Your recovery is amazing. You're able to digest more calories and take in clean protein, especially when you're removing the middleman, which is animals. You know,
Yeah.
you're going directly to the source. You're superseding and going directly to the source of all essential protein, which is plant protein. Why wouldn't you want to remove that middleman? And so that's something people will learn in that part of that book, without a doubt.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about, because you spell it out very, very well in the book, and it's something that I think is so blatant, and that is, you say that Black America is sicker than most, and maybe it's, and I'm just wondering if you want to,
Yeah, it's
talk
true.
about that, because what I love, Dom, is that, the way you're representing, the way you're setting an example, not only for all people, but specifically for the Black community, is powerful and it's needed. And yeah.
A lot of Black Americans are still in very poor communities, or what's deemed as marginalized communities. Depends on what part of the political party you sit on these days, because now we're in a very scary time where history is being rewrote and definitions are being redefined, which is sad. But let's call it what it is. But yeah, a lot of Black Americans and Brown Americans, Black and Brown vulnerable communities, are at different disadvantages from historic practices, from predatorial to racist, including redlining and more, where they have to play catch up, and or allowing these inhibitors and entities come into these communities, from liquor stores to fast food shacks and big brands and big boxes that are just doing nothing but promoting and only producing fried carcinogens and more. So these are unhealthy things that a lot of kids and young adults and even other adults are conditioned to think that this is okay and this is the way of what we eat and more. And that's not true, especially when you're dealing in more dead zones where there aren't near grocery stores or farmer markets, where they have access to more healthy food options in itself. And we talk a lot about that in the book specifically. So it's very real. It really is.
Yeah. Tell me why the elephant of all the animals? Why the elephant that you named this book and your whole brand after?
Yeah. Eat what elephants eat. And as the book says, vegan recipes for a strong body and gentle spirit. Animals historically, if you go do a deep dive, have been fixated as a form of, it's just very symbolic to humans of what they like to identify with. You look at all the NFL teams and basketball teams, Chicago Bears, Dallas. You have rare commodities entities like Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah.
but most sports teams from collegiate, high school, all the way up to pros and elite, associate themselves with some form of a mascot. And most men and women, when they tap into that masculine energy, usually aspire to be in that form of that animal that has been able to be respected as, most of the time, as apex predators. And you see big cats and bears. It's usually a carnivore animal associated with these teams, or the human person that wants to be competitive. And elephants are some of the most gentle, some of the smartest. They are, by definition and biology wise, the largest, strongest vegans, technically. They eat nothing but plants. They don't eat other animals. Really, the biggest, strongest giants of all the animal kingdom when it comes to mammals specifically. And that reminds me a lot of what our community is about. Very gentle community, very compassionate community, and a community full of strong men and women that do no harm approach, but are not afraid to also step up and defend the most vulnerable and put their tucks down and defend the weak. And to me, it just made all the sense in the world, especially when I was speaking at it. When it comes to speaking engagement, that this ideal about elephants came into my mind when I was tapped to go speak at NYU, because we all sometimes use visual aids. Humans are visual aid creatures. And one of the best ways to help a lot of these men and women, specifically young men, identify with masculinity is to show them the power and the iconic view of an elephant. And just to let you know, you, the reader, you, the visual student that's in the audience, that elephants are plant-based, not lions. And I never looked back, and that was years and years ago. So yeah, it's something special about the elephant, not to mention it's in my DNA. Being of Nigerian and Congo descent is one of my bloodlines, and that's where they're the most protected in those national parks in Africa. The African desert elephant is the most powerful plant-eating animal alive.
I want to read another excerpt. This is from page 43, and you're talking about kind of my way of the elephant. You say, but as I matured and followed my do no harm path, my new definition of strength became a non-gendered one. Love that. Based on compassion, empathy, and vulnerability. My vision of strength is inspired by two sources: my mother's kindness, integrity, ability to overcome challenges, and her willingness to communicate, and from the strength of our world's largest herbivore and my ancestral guide, the mighty African elephant. Your book is dedicated to, the three most important sources of energy and inspiration in your life: your mother, Maria, your fur daughter, Sosha. Is that how you pronounce it?
Soka.
Soka.
That's great.
And my first son, Rock. I love you all to the moon and back. Can you talk about those three sources of inspiration?
Yeah, my mother, the most beautiful, gentle human I have ever had the honor of meeting. And I'm not just saying that to be biased, but she would give her last to a stranger on the street. She was the nurse that, after seeing this witness of this gunfire, when I seen my first murder at the age of 5, pulled over in the car to make sure we was okay and got out that car to check on a little girl that just got hit by that driver in that moment of that quick scenario, because that's who she is, and wanted to make sure that little girl was okay after she got hit by the hit and run scenario. And you read about that in the book. But she's the most beautiful human being that's the most selfless person that I have ever met to this day. Secondly, Soka came into my life. She means so much to me. She transitioned a few years ago. She left me and Rock behind. But Soka was the first animal to come into my life after I came home from prison with this militant mindset and had a very, very fragile and closed heart that I didn't even, my mother didn't think I was able to love again. Or I haven't cracked a smile in years. And when she was introduced to me, my mom brought her back from St. Thomas Islands. That's why she's named Soka. She's an island dog from St. Thomas, and their national dance is called the soca. And my mom named her Soka. And again, you can read about her full story in the book. But when she was introduced in my life, gave me those big, beautiful brown Pixlar eyes, my smile returned, and my mother never thought she'd see it again. And Soka just basically taught me how to love again, without a doubt. And Rock, he's my husky, my dude, my son, my everything. He comes from a troubled background, and I was able to adopt him when he was 1. And again, you can read about his story as well. But he was able to get me out of that funk when his sister transitioned. But he keeps me on my toes. He keeps me young. He keeps me sharp. He reminds me a lot of when I was a young man growing up, just misunderstood, and then have that guidance, and that's what I'm here for, to guide him. So we're a good match, me and him. I love him to death.
I think I may have just heard him drinking water from a bowl.
You did, yeah.
Way to be, Rock. Get yourself some hydration there. So let's talk. I want to start talking about some of the incredible recipes that you have in this book, because I think, what do you have, 80? Yeah. About 80 recipes. Have you always loved like being a cook and being a chef, or is this something that you found after prison?
I've been cooking since I was a little boy, because my mom was a nurse, and she worked as a pediatric nurse in the daytime, and a lot of nights during the week. She would work as a nurse in a nursing home for the graveyard shift so she can make ends meet, because she had to feed 3 mouths, me and my 2 older sisters, and she was the only source of income that we had growing up in our apartment. And so I had to fend for myself. Growing up with 2 teenage sisters, one that was already on her way out the door. Yolanda did look out for me as much as she can, but Tanya, she was not making me meals when I wanted to. So I had to fend for myself. So I kind of picked up things I learned from my mom, and as well as my siblings and more. But to me, cooking is like painting. I have been really good as a natural artist, but same thing with cooking. To me, it's poetry. It's something I love doing, and I think I have the palate for it. Where I know what matches with what types of spices and more. So
yeah. Before I dive into some of the recipes, because I've marked about 10 of them that I want to walk through with you.
Sure.
Is your mother still alive, Maria?
Yes, she's still alive.
Is she still in Chicago?
No, she's in Atlanta. She's about an hour away from me, but she is moving back to Chicago this year to be closer to her grandchildren.
Got it. And I mean, your mom and your sisters must be so proud of the kind of the life that you've carved out for yourself.
I think they are. Okay. Yeah. They're a tough crowd for sure. That's one benefit of being a man. Black or white doesn't matter. If you are a male that was brought up around strong women, no nonsense, independent women, it definitely produces a great human being and a different type of male with a different type of perspective. So that's an advantage I have over other men. I had the chance to be brought up by strong women. Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, I'm sure you've sent them copies of your book, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So my mom Uh, Very proud moment to have an altar in the family, and my sisters are proud of me without a doubt. So are my nieces and nephews, without a doubt.
Right. Right.
But even more importantly, to get people in my life I don't talk to that much, or those that I haven't spoken to in years. My old boss calling me up, and I do owe her a phone call because she was one of the people that gave me a second chance when I came home to get a job, despite my background now as a felon. So that's special to me to see, because I mentioned her in the book, my old boss, Kim. And she's so proud of me. She's so proud of me and
Yeah.
who I became. Yeah.
What do you, so your mom and your sisters and maybe some of your other people you grew up with, have they embraced your veganism? Or have they?
Yeah. They've been inspired. Yeah.
Yeah.
They eat plant-based. They're not completely vegan, but they eat a lot of plant-based foods or plant-based recipes because of me, from my mother down to my nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah. They have been inspired to eat better because of me.
All right. Love it. So let's dive into some recipes. All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I got to tell you, the photography in this book is incredible. And that's thanks to Caitlin Bensell, right?
Yeah, Caitlin is incredible. Her team was incredible. In fact, the same chef that created the recipes for photographing for Snoop Dogg's cookbook was the same.
Wow.
Out of honor, she made my recipes and made them look good. So yes.
Well, so you have a whole section on dressings, but here I saw this chickpea Caesar dressing and I was like, oh God.
You got to try it. You got to try it. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's one thing about the book, you have options to make what I call completely whole plant-based recipes that are completely oil-free, like you.
Yeah.
I do eat. I know you eat completely oil-free at times. I eat primarily oil-free, but you have the option of doing oil-free recipes or whole plant-based recipes, or if you're crowded for time, you have opportunity to do shortcuts too. The recipes are engineered and wrote for different levels of eaters and picky eaters and cooks, from the 5-minute kitchen chef to the 50-minute kitchen chef. So that's one thing about the recipes. They are all very manageable.
That's good. So they're customizable like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They are. Yeah.
So this photo, I was just starstruck by the brilliance and the color of these waffles. I don't know which recipe it is, but you know what I'm
the beet waffles. Yes, the beet waffles. I came up with that recipe probably about 5 to 6 years ago. I was in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Story. Actually longer than that, I believe. I think I was in my Ironman days when I was doing triathlons in New York. But I remember being in the kitchen, being creative and wanting. That's when I did a lot of mixing with beets and watermelon as a pre-workout drink versus taking some supplement powdered to get to down before a long century bike ride on a Saturday morning. But there's so much you can do with beets, and it's such a underrated vegetable. I looked at those. I remember just like, I don't want just some basic flour type of waffles or pancakes. I want it to be already naturally sweet without adding some type of sugar or sweetener to the powder itself. Sure, you can depend more on maple syrup, but as you know, some people are heavy with the maple syrup, and I just wanted it to be naturally sweet. And that's when I added beets too, because that's when I was in my beet phase of having beets in a lot of different recipes, and just creatively thought of it. It was spontaneous. Yeah.
Well, and I love it because I've never seen red waffles like that before, especially for beets. Tell me this: how forward tasting are the beets in those waffles? Can you?
So good. You can eat it without. You can drink it. You can eat them. You can eat the waffles, and you can also do a duration of pancakes the same way without maple syrup. Just add you some fruit. They're both sweet enough.
Yeah,
and they're all free too.
Yeah, love that. Here, I just want to show people. This is just a photo of you that's in the book, right? So you like that hat, huh?
Yeah, that was something that we spent the day going. They followed me to the farmers market
Mm.
because I try to go to the farmers market as much as possible to support local vendors. But it was really sunny that day and very bright, and so yeah, I just threw in a hat. It's a casual Saturday, and they wanted to keep it in the
Yeah.
photo. Yeah, I have photos we took without the hat, and it's like, no, we like the hat. Let's do the hat.
So on page 160, you have good morning, sweet potato. And I've
Hmm.
never, again, your creativity astounds me. I've never, ever seen sweet potatoes that look like dessert. But look at this. Like you've got a banana variety, you've got a berries. I mean, you go to town.
Yeah, there's so many ways to you variations of potatoes. There's over 10 different type of potatoes to make in 100 different ways. And honestly, Rep, this is just one of many
Yeah.
ways you can make a very good sweet potato to satisfy that palate of yours. Yes, it's one of my favorites.
Do you have a favorite potato that you like working with?
Yeah, the Japanese potato.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a hybrid. It's a mix of the traditional Idaho potato and a traditional sweet or purple potato. But you get, if anyone ever had a Japanese potato, you get this mix of sweet and savory in one bite.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my favorite potato. I love it. So good.
Yeah. Solid.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show people two back-to-back kind of soups. This is a watermelon gazpacho.
Yes.
Look at that.
Hmm.
And then followed on the next page, you have this spinach and broccoli Iron Man soup.
Yeah, that's named after being an Ironman triathlete myself and doing triathlons, but it's such a beautiful recipe that you can create in cold months like now. Today we woke up to like 30 degrees, unseasonably cold here in Atlanta. But as you know, the whole nation is blanketed with cold weather these days. So it's a really good soup to warm your heart and your soul, full of nutrients.
You, like me, are a huge fan of bowls, bowl building,
Yes, sir.
right? I
I
think,
am.
yeah. And so you have a whole section. This is your
The OG.
EWE bowl.
We call it EWE. Yeah, that's an acronym. That's short for Eat What Elephants Eat. So that's the
EWE.
OG bowl, the first of many bowls, but that's mixed. That's on top of a bed of leafy greens, an iron kale, sauteed chickpeas, Japanese potato, or you can use sweet potatoes, avocados, hemp seeds,
Yeah.
pistachios, tomatoes. So good, so good.
You've got all kinds of wonderful bowls in this
A lot
section.
of good
Yeah.
bowls.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love doing collard green wraps, and you
Hmm.
have these. You call them egg salad collard wraps, and I mean, look at that. You're putting that filling in there with all kinds of great stuff, and
Yeah, a
mm,
lot of firm tofu mixed in with the cashew mayo. Again, these could be made for those that's listening. These could be made oil free, very healthy substitute for the traditional alternative of an egg salad. That's
yeah,
full of mayo and sugars. You don't want that.
right. Um, I don't know if I've ever seen a sandwich that looks this large, but I would like to try and tackle it. This is your
Yes, the
mega
tofu
tofu deal.
BLT. Yeah, because growing up in the Midwest, I grew up around a lot of sandwiches, including burgers and hoagies and BLTs. And this is my version of a big, nice BLT that's plant-based and healthy for the soul and
Mm,
body.
mm. And I just got to show people another. This is your beet burger.
Yeah, my beet burger is one of my favorites.
Oh my!
That again, during my timeline of beets, and I was inspired to come up with this beet recipe where the burger patty in itself is sweet and savory, and you don't have to rely on condiments for a nice tasting bite.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and to your point, you went through your beat period there when what you were doing your Ironman triathlons and a lot of your
Yeah,
training. But as you
yeah,
said, I mean, there is so much science to support that beets are really kind of a a performing enhancing food because of the nitrates that turn into nitrites and dilate our vessels and all that.
Yes.
You give I love the way, you kind of give a nod to your roots. And here, for example, this is a soul bowl.
Yeah. The soul bowl is another one of my favorites. And we talk about that as far as the history of soul food associated with the Black community dating back to slavery, on how it was given scraps. But soul food, or what we know some people eat today, is very unhealthy, and it's nothing to really highlight as it has been. But a lot of Black vegans, including myself, are trying to redefine and show people that soul food could be healthy and not be a unhealthy product of slavery in itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you know, I think his name, Terry Bryant at all?
I don't know Terry. I heard of Terry, though. I don't know him at all.
Yeah, because I know he does all kinds of vegan soul cooking. That's kind of his, his niche, so to speak. All right. Your Auntie Valerie would make some stuffed peppers. And
Valerie, yes, my Auntie Valerie. Yeah.
But these are the healthy version.
Yes, yeah. My Aunt Valerie used to do these stuffed peppers. And so one thing you're going to love about the book, most of these recipes has been veganized based off of some nostalgic recipes I grew up liking to different family members. And I give a little blurb before each recipe, take you down memory lane about that recipe. So it's like storytelling. It's a really great storytelling.
No, it is. And I think it's so important that each recipe have a story, right? That kind of has a little history, and you do a beautiful job with that. You also have a little dessert section for us with the sweet tooth. which I do. And as all the Plant Strong listeners know, I'm a sucker for a really good chocolate dessert, and these brownies, I mean, help me.
Jiffy. Yeah, that's the Jiffy brownie. The Jiffy brownie is one of the first foods I grew up as a kid. My first recipe that I ever made growing up, I was like 8 years old when I was cooking in the kitchen. So the listener know I started off baking, not cooking, because I had a sweet tooth. And Jiffy used to produce these brownies similar to the Jiffy cornbread that was so good to me. And so I just basically re-engineered it in a plant-based, healthier version called a Jiffy brownie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things, but I don't have it very often, is a cobbler, a really good cobbler. And you have this peach cobbler that I just want to dive into. And the way that you've put it together is so wild, the way it looks like droplets of the, I guess, what did you call that? The crust that are on top of the peaches, the freestone peaches.
Yeah. So that cobbler is mimicked off of my grandmother Sophie's peach cobbler famous recipe. And I noticed after the book was published that they probably by accident left her name off of that, but it should have said Sophie's peach cobbler.
Right.
But she made a really great peach cobbler, and that's mimicked off of that.
So the whole introduction to this book, you say this kitchen is for dancing. And for anybody that follows you, Dom, on Instagram knows that you can dance it up in the kitchen. And I love that. And I just want to read this and then have you make some remarks on, how your kitchen is such a sanctuary for you these days. But you say, this kitchen is for dancing. It's a reminder that here in my kitchen, where I cook, eat, and share delicious vegan food, I am engaged in the most upbeat dance of all, the one called life. That's awesome.
Yeah, I used to dance with Soka a lot in my kitchen. And she would get excited when I would dance and do the recipes for her and I. And I have the sign right here. In fact, there's the sign. This kitchen is for dancing, that I used often as a former inspiration because I make some of my best recipes. I'm always singing and dancing in the kitchen. And to me, the kitchen in itself is one of the most intimate parts of a home
Mm.
where you can find inspiration. You can have some heart to hearts with other family members. And basically, what kind of defines your foundation going forward. And we talk about that in details in the book. So it's very special to me, that memory, especially the memories I had growing up to my last memories with Soka and currently Rock. He's a great, great dance partner in the kitchen.
So is there any particular music right now that you like to put on when you dance in the kitchen?
I love them all. I mean, I might be in the mood for some Al Green, down to some mood for some soulful house music, down to some trance music like Rufus De La Soul, down to some Kings of Leon, alternative rock, and more. So I love it all, man. Like music is such a beautiful, beautiful work of art, and I think everyone could find inspiration in some type of music.
Yeah. What's the best way for people to get a hold of your book, Eat What Elephants Eat?
The book itself, you can go to your local Barnes and Nobles to get a copy if they're still on the shelves. They have been selling out, or you can order it directly through Barnes and Noble, or you can go to Amazon, or you can go directly to the Simon & Schuster website. It's everywhere books are sold, even to your local bookstore, which I do encourage you to support. If they don't carry in your local bookstore, you can request them to order. That way they can get a percentage of that sale to help support your local bookstore. But it's literally everywhere books are sold.
Any other places that people should know about where they can know more about you and all the great stuff you're doing? Obviously, there's your Instagram handle, Dom.
Yeah. The best source of contacting me or to follow what I've been doing is directly through my Instagram, Dom Thompson specifically. Or you can go to Eat What Elephants Eat, which is also our IG, Eat What Elephants Eat. That's the food company. And you won't see much as me on there, but you can see some of these amazing recipes. But yeah, the best way to contact me from Instagram to TikTok and more is at Dom Thompson, and on Facebook as well.
Fabulous. Well, Dom, thanks so much for spending some time with me today and talking about Eat What Elephants Eat. And as we talked about before we kind of went live here, I know this was a serious labor of love. You spent years on it, and congratulations on crossing the finish line.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah. And Dom, I want to have you back on the podcast when we're getting ready to roll out the new movie about your life.
Yes, I would love to. Yes, count me in for that. I can't wait to share more about the movie, the BTS behind the scenes. It's an incredible feature, multi-million-dollar movie project, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Well, so are we. Excited about everything you're doing, all the great work. All right, Dom, you have a great one. And
you too, brother.
Can you kind of get a Plan Strong fist bump on the way out? Boom.
There we go. You too, brother. And I hope to see you soon. I already told Adam when me and Rock drive cross country to LA, you guys are a pit stop on the way back so we can get some pickleball in. I don't know if you know, but I'm really good at pickleball. Really good.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, brother. I'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.
Eat What Elephants Eat is available now wherever books are sold. And as usual, I'll be sure to put a link in today's show notes to make that super duper easy for you. It's a beautiful transformation story, absolutely, but it's also a tool for your own self-discovery. When you dig deep into your own heart, what is it that you want to be? Like Dom and like all the elephants, I know I want to continue to be and always be Plan Strong. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. The Plan Strong podcast team includes Carrie Barrett, Lori Kordowich, and Amy Mackey. If you like what you hear, do us a favor and share the show with your friends and loved ones. You can always leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're there, make sure to hit that follow button so that you never miss an episode. As always, this and every episode is dedicated to my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Cryle Esselstyn. Thanks so much for listening.